The yeas are 230. The nays are 197. Present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. Are 229. The nays are 198. Present is 1. Article 2 is adopted.
Tonight, we're in Washington for a historic moment in American politics. Donald Trump has been impeached.
He gave us no choice.
The vote, the response.
We did nothing wrong.
And where it all leaves a deeply divided country. SNC Lavalin pleads guilty in a case that damaged the Trudeau Liberals.
You don't get do-overs in politics.
After a huge cyber attack, Life Labs cannot say whether your medical records were encrypted.
We didn't ask for the cancer in the first place. We didn't really ask for this either.
Their breast implants could cause cancer, so why won't some provinces pay to remove the implants? This is The National. You are looking at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, the site tonight of a remarkable moment. In that building, Donald Trump just became the third U.S. president ever to be impeached. The months-long journey to this point, starting with that July phone call between Trump and the president of Ukraine, has been very public and very partisan. We're here on this blustery, cold night because this is where the story is centered. But the ramifications of that vote go far beyond that building.
All in favor, say aye.
Today's vote puts Trump one step closer to possibly being removed from office, though that would require the Republican-held Senate to vote him out. Beyond that, there is next November to consider, the next presidential election. The gamble for Democrats, whether impeaching Trump today will help turn Americans against him or them. We'll have a look at that as well as how Trump is reacting tonight.
By the way, it doesn't really feel like we're being impeached, do you?
But we start with what happened inside that room on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers impeached the president for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Paul Hunter with the drama that led to that historic decision.
In the end, it was a simple vote count, tallied electronically live on TV. The result, historic. Donald Trump impeached. But what a day leading up to that.
Resolved that Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors.
In the run-up to the vote, just hearing the words from inside the U.S. Capitol building.
Article 1, abuse of power.
And the allegations.
Article 2, obstruction of Congress.
Underlining the stakes for Donald Trump. For more than 7 hours, they debated the allegations against him yet again.
Our founders' vision of a republic is under threat from actions from the White House.
Say Democrats, Trump abused the presidency for his own political gain by pressuring Ukraine to dig up dirt on Trump rival Joe Biden, and then that Trump obstructed the investigation into that.
He gave us no choice. Never before in the history of our nation have we seen a president declare and act if he is above the law.
But for the courage of someone willing to blow the whistle, he would have gotten away with it. Instead, he got caught. He tried to cheat, and he got caught.
Indeed, one after another, Democrats made their view clear, at times with passion.
When you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. Our children and their children will ask us, what did you do? What did you say?
But equally, as has been the case throughout, Republicans countered.
This vote, this day, is about one thing and one thing only. They hate this president.
Enough of this impeachment circus. Enough of these sham witch hunts. I'm voting no because the president has done nothing wrong.
But in the end, Donald Trump has been impeached. Paul, you were in that House chamber for a lot of that debate today. What was it like?
It was sobering, right? I mean, you feel it when you're sitting in the chamber. at some point I realized, this is where they had the State of the Union address, including Donald Trump.
Right.
So you feel the sense of history. And then the clerk says the words, right? Donald J. Trump, and abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. And you realize it's actually happening. They're impeaching a president tonight. I say sobering because regardless of your politics, this is not a happy night in this country. This is now the legacy of Donald Trump. And in that room today, you felt that.
Okay, Paul, thanks very much. All day, as debate rang out inside the House of Representatives, reaction rolled in outside, first from protesters, and then, as Susan Ormison shows us, from the president himself.
Impeached, but not contrite.
By the way, it doesn't really feel like we're being impeached.
As the 45th president seemingly shucked off the stain, Trump Nation rallied.
Nothing wrong.
In the shadow of Capitol Hill, so did Democrats.
Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like!
Reveling in the day they'd longed for.
The majority of Americans believe he should be impeached and removed.
But Congress and this country are both sharply divided, even more angry.
We do not live in a world that adheres to the facts. We will not be
you get your facts from the establishment media.
You're mad because you can't win.
Tim Collins stops to shout back at the demonstrators.
They lost the election. They've been harassing our president since day one. They need to leave him alone.
Any solemn victory for Democrats is limited by the political reality that impeaching this president will not put him out of office. Do you think impeachment has power if he's not removed?
Yes. But this is a man right now whose behavior seems to know no bounds. So it may be more for the country than for him.
But Donald Trump will play impeachment as a nasty plot, says Hans Knoll.
This is the elites, Congress, the Democrats, the media, all out to get Trump. And so if you go to a Trump rally, that's what he's going to say already, and he's going to be able to segue naturally into anything that comes out of the impeachment to fit that narrative.
With this president, there will be no apology. He will cleave the country still, says Samuel Porter.
Forget the impeachment for a moment. He just divides us, and it's just not right. This man brings out the worst in all of us, and he just really divides us, and it's not cool.
We wish you would leave the White House sometime next year.
Parody or not, there is little chance of that.
So a historic day, Susan, and not just here in Washington, I guess, but across the country, right?
Yeah, I mean, the impact won't be felt tomorrow or even in the weeks. It'll be measured in months when we see really if impeachment still matters, if it galvanizes voters. We know that it will be used in campaigns. It already has. And I was struck, Adrian, by some of the people at that rally who conceded reluctantly that it won't remove this president, but it is a statement of what they say is disgust with this president. On the other hand, Republican voters have said they feel this was a bold attempt to nullify their vote, and now more than ever, they're not going to let that happen. So, in a way, the campaign for 2020 has just started, Adrian.
All right, Susan, thanks very much. So, Trump is impeached, but tonight he is still the president of the United States. Removing him from office would take a conviction in the Senate, which is where all of this heads next. The Republican-held Senate will now hold a trial with senators sitting as the jury. There's no date set yet, but it's widely expected to start in January. Beforehand, Democrats and Republicans will try to work out the rules, including who to call or not call as witnesses. That's a point that's already proving contentious. It's really not clear how long the trial will last, but weeks is a pretty safe bet. And in the end, it would take an unlikely 2/3 vote to convict Trump and remove him from office. Okay, so obviously lots to consider about what transpired here in Washington just moments ago. Let's bring in David Frum, senior editor at The Atlantic. David, curious, initially, what was your gut reaction to tonight's vote?
For once in his life, Donald Trump has acquired something he has earned.
Obviously a historic day for democracy. Were there any winners here?
I think the process is a winner. Certainly the Congress has put down a marker that next time, if you're a president who's accused of wrongdoing, you cannot refuse to hand over documents. You cannot refuse to allow your people to testify. I was looking just this morning at the speeches that Ronald Reagan gave during the Iran-Contra controversy of 1987. That was a red-hot controversy. Reagan made everything available, every document, made all of his officials available, and the result was, although a lot went wrong, he was not impeached. That there were resignations, but people said, okay, the president has done his best to get to the bottom of this. But you stonewall, and this is what happens.
You know, on the face of it, David, in some ways this went exactly as people thought it would, almost right down to the hour. Is there anything that took you off guard at all about today?
There is a kind of fateful inevitability to all of this. It's worth remembering that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, had been opposed to impeachment and had done everything she could to try to avoid it. After the Mueller report came out, which had so many damning details, she wanted to stay off the impeachment track. The trouble was that Donald Trump also got a vote, and he kept doing additional things. And the Ukraine scandal in particular, it wasn't just that it was so much worse than anything that's happened before. It was so much more flagrant, so much more visible. He gave Congress no way not to see it. They kind of were stuck. They had to act. And so now here we are, and we are facing the even more difficult drama that is going to come in 2020 when this action moves to the Senate.
Comfortable that she met with Bashar Assad, the Syrian president. They just aren't.
That's something that's continued to be an issue that's followed her. Let's go ahead and take you back to the floor. I believe House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has just gavelled it.
On this vote, the yeas are 230, the nays are 197, present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question is on adoption of Article 2. The question is on the adoption of Article 2. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? For what purpose does the gentleman...
Madam Speaker, I ask for a roll...
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
I ask for a roll call vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will still rise. That will be in order. A sufficient number have arisen. A recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
All right, so you heard there from Speaker Pelosi a 5-minute vote on the second article of impeachment, obstruction of Congress. But that count once again on Article 1, abuse of power, 230 yeas, 197 nays, 1 voting present. So, Molly, at this point, you know, we were talking earlier about what it is that the Senate may or may not do. Tell us what happens if, as expected, the second article of impeachment is actually approved.
Well, then what happens is the House Democrats, well, the House, the Democrats, will determine who is going to represent the House as managers, essentially the prosecutors for the House, to make this case over in the Senate. And at that point, when the House votes on those managers, they essentially are sending the articles of impeachment to the Senate. Because until then, the articles are still stuck in the House, because guess what? Nobody's there to manage it, right? So there's been some chatter.
Yeah, who do we know? Do we have a sense of who that is?
Some chatter, and maybe Antoine could speak to it better. But I guess Lawrence Tribe, earlier this week, penned an op-ed in the Washington Post, Harvard law professor, saying that why don't the Democrats in the House just hold on to those articles until they can agree with the Senate on a fair trial.
To delay the process.
Essentially to delay the process, to make sure that Mitch McConnell and Republicans and the president don't necessarily railroad this through like essentially the senior senator from South Carolina had said, I have no interest in dealing with this. We're going to get it over. We're going to vote too quick. Moving on. Democrats in the House say, no, that's not fair. These articles need to be heard and it needs to be a fair trial. And so Lawrence Tribe had been making this argument, and several Democrats have been referring to that, kind of whispering among themselves, hey, maybe this is an idea. Maybe let's hold on to the managers. Well, there's a little problem with that. Because Mitch McConnell is not going to vote on the trade deal until after the impeachment
The USMCA.
trial. The USMCA.
And why does that matter?
That matters because it's a big deal for those 31 Democrats who represent Trump-won districts.
And to the Republicans.
And, well, of course, to the Republicans. That's
They need
very big
something
deal.
to take home.
But Democrats need something to take home. Those moderate Democrats need something to take home.
That's what I used to talk about. I said when I was honored that night, I said, how do you let this happen? How do you let all these companies leave? It used to go, it's probably maybe the single biggest reason I ran for president. It might be the single, and I had a lot of them. Immigration, I had a lot of them, but that may be the single biggest. With today's illegal, unconstitutional, and partisan impeachment, the do-nothing Democrats, and they are do-nothing. All they want to do is focus on this. What they could be doing are declaring their deep hatred and disdain for the American voter. This lawless partisan impeachment is a political suicide march for the Democrat Party. Have you seen my polls in the last 4 weeks? It's crazy. You know why? Because people, we have an election right down the road. I announced 3 months ago that I'm running, right? I'll give you a little clue. I announced because I figured once I announced they'd never impeach, nobody would be so stupid. But they've been trying to impeach me from day one. They've been trying to impeach me from before I ran, okay?
Are 229. The nays are 198. Present is 1. Article 2 is adopted.
In just over an hour, President Donald J. Trump is likely to become only the third U.S. president in history to be impeached.
Here is a live look at the House floor. We are nearly 6 hours into the debate of the articles of impeachment. And CBS 2's Suzanne Lemonnier has been watching every minute of it. She is live in the newsroom. Suzanne, it's clear this vote will be down party lines.
Erica, Brad, the debate continuing as we speak. You just mentioned, but all day, Democrats have been saying they're defending the Constitution. Republicans responding by saying the president has done nothing wrong.
In Chicago, someone asked the question, what is our position on impeachment?
Congressman Danny Davis summed up his thoughts on the articles of impeachment before him.
When I speak for the people of the 7th District of Illinois, and my vote will be impeach, impeach, impeach.
The House is debating 2 articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump. The first charges the president with abuse of power. The second, obstruction of Congress in his dealings with Ukraine to steer the presidential election to his advantage. Illinois Congresswoman Robin Kelly says she's casting her vote for the people who have entrusted her to be their voice.
I vote yes for Sarah in Chicago, Doug in Kankakee, Diane in Flossmoor. Yes for Kathy in Momence, Catherine in Crete, and Jimmy in Park Forest. The facts are simple. The path forward is clear. Impeachment is not an option. It is an obligation because no one is above the law.
First-term Representative Sean Casten says each vote is about America and democracy.
So when you vote in a few hours, don't vote your party. Vote your character. That's how you're going to be judged, and that's how we're all going to be judged.
An Indiana Republican debates the merit of the case against President Trump.
The president committed no crime, broke no laws, and there was no quid pro quo. I look forward to doing the right thing, representing the Hoosiers in my district, and voting against this impeachment charade.
Republican Congressman Paul Mitchell from Michigan says as votes are cast, the future tone of the House and politics in the nation must be carefully considered.
The issue is not whether we agree with or like the president's rhetoric, political tactics, use of Twitter, policy choices, or his political rallies.
The vote on the impeachment is expected to take place by 6:20 our time. If the majority of all representatives vote yes, the president will be impeached. Then the president would be tried in the Senate. Live in the newsroom, Suzanne Le Mignot, CBS 2 News. Erica Brad.
CBS News will have live coverage of the historic impeachment vote that's coming up at 5:30.
All right, Alice, and let's go back now. The live look in the House chamber, which continues. That's Mark Meadows, congressman from North Carolina. We'll keep monitoring that. We'll go back to it as developments occur. And again, as I mentioned, you can still see it streaming on clickondetroit.com. But while that is unfolding, the president is going to be 600 miles away here in Michigan for this rally in Battle Creek.
Mara McDonald is live at Kellogg Arena tonight, where President Trump is set to take the stage in just a few hours, Mara.
Well, I think he's going to be here in about an hour and a half, Kimberly. Take a look. You can see they've got a capacity crowd here at Kellogg Arena, and depending on the event here, the seating capacity is about 9,800 people. We don't have an official word from the fire marshal yet on exactly how many people are in here, but I can tell you people started lining up early in the day in blistering cold temperatures to get in here.
Okay.
Plenty of Trump souvenirs being sold to the thousands already in line for hours this afternoon, hawking everything from hats to chair blankets. But most were dressed for the cold, although not necessarily with the flair of David Morris, who drove in from Ann Arbor.
I think it's super important because it shows he's still devoted and he's still motivated, even though all this crap's going on, all this impeachment, stupid stuff. You know, even though nothing's going to happen. We'll see him next 4 years.
The House impeachment vote was top of mind.
I'm appalled. I'm appalled that the president is being treated with such disrespect.
But those standing out here say they want to hear from the president himself tonight.
I know you guys are from the news, so take this with a grain of salt. I want to hear what he has to say from his mouth, unedited, uncut. You know, I don't want to hear just what the media is trying to tell me, so I came to hear what he has to say.
Back here live inside Kellogg Arena, we expect the president to take the stage sometime around 7:30. He just tweeted out within the last half an hour, "Thank you, Michigan. I am on my way. See everybody soon. Hashtag KAG," meaning Keep America Great. We're live in Battle Creek tonight. I'm Mara McDonald. Kimberly, back to you.
Okay, Mara, thank you. Certainly a lot going on from Capitol Hill in Washington and out in Battle Creek with Mara. We'll be monitoring both of these events and streaming the president's rally tonight on clickondetroit.com. And we continue to monitor the House of Representatives as we await an official vote on the 2 articles of impeachment. We are streaming this live right now. Again, we are expecting a vote tonight. Devin.
I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States.
A historic day unfolding on Capitol Hill.
This is a moment that you will read about in your history books.
But many U.S. lawmakers not happy about it.
Today is a very sad day.
I am saddened.
This is a sad day for our nation.
Madam Speaker, this is a sad day.
Congress members arguing about 2 minutes at a time for and against along party lines the impeachment of Donald Trump.
President Trump will continue to threaten the nation's security, democracy, and constitutional system if he is allowed to remain in office.
If you set this bar as being impeachable, every president in our future will be impeached.
The debate coming before the votes in the Democrat-controlled House on 2 articles or charges accusing the Republican president of abuse of power by pressuring Ukraine to announce investigations that would benefit the U.S. president politically, and of obstructing Congress by failing to cooperate with the House investigation.
I will vote yes on both articles because it is what the Constitution requires and what my conscience demands.
I urge this body to vote no to partisan impeachment.
We will impeach Donald John Trump. I strongly oppose the articles before us today, and I hope that we will finally move past this nightmare.
Even before official votes were cast, Trump, the 45th president of the U.S., was widely expected to become only the 3rd person in his position to be impeached. He has repeatedly denied wrongdoing, and during Wednesday's debate, Trump tweeting, "Such atrocious lies by the radical left, do-nothing Democrats. This is an assault on America and an assault on the Republican Party."
Today, the House of Representatives will vote to impeach a president.
Also before the final votes, demonstrators rallying in Washington calling for Trump's impeachment. Polls from the Washington Post and ABC News and CNN
show about half of Americans support impeachment.
And I talked to him today. I said, "How you doing?" "Well, I'm being impeached. Other than that, I'm doing okay."
That's Republican Senator Lindsey Graham recounting his talk with Trump. An impeachment in the House will mean it'll be up to the Republican-controlled Senate to convict and remove Trump from office, but it's likely Trump will be acquitted and will stay in power. Historically, of course, only two U.S. presidents have been impeached, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, but neither was removed by the Senate. As for where Trump is spending his evening, at a rally in Battle Creek, Michigan. Of course, the fight already on for the 2020 presidential election. For City News, I'm Melissa Duggan.
Welcome back. As we wait for the House to vote on the articles of impeachment later tonight against the president, the focus now shifts to the decision and how that could affect the 2020 election coming up.
And we're not just talking about the presidency. KXAN political reporter Phil Prazen joins us now. Phil, what other races could be directly affected by what's happening in D.C. right now?
Sydney, every single race for federal office, so the United States House of Representatives, the United States Senate, all of that will kind of pivot on this vote. President Trump will be the defining issue in 2020, and soon everyone in Congress will sign on the line on whether they want President Trump out or not. This is really important because record votes are very clear-cut positions voters understand. It will be key in the race for the United States Senate here in Texas. Incumbent Republican John Cornyn is on the ballot against whoever emerges from the Democratic primary. So in the trial in the Senate, Cornyn votes to keep President Trump in office, as we expect him to do. Then what happens if a scandal emerges that's worse than the rest? Democrats can say, well, Senator, you had a chance to get rid of him and you didn't. But then what if things are great in the country because of the President Trump's policies? Republicans can say, see, imagine if we got rid of him back in January. But what is key here is we don't really know what's going to happen between now and November 2020. So that's why these votes are so nervous for all of the Congress members and senators, and that's why they're so important.
Stay tuned. More to come. Thank you
for his tremendous leadership in helping us honor the Constitution of the United States. I also extend my gratitude to Chairman Schiff, who will be presiding later in the day. My colleagues, this morning and every morning, when we come together, members rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Every day, all across America, children in school, members of the military, officials, and those civically engaged also pledge allegiance to the flag. Let us recall what that pledge says. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The republic for which it stands is what we are here to talk about today. A republic, if we can keep it. We gather today under the dome of this temple of democracy to exercise one of the most solemn powers that this body can take, the impeachment of the President of the United States. No member, regardless of party or politics, comes to Congress to impeach a president. But every one of us, as our first act as a member of Congress, stood on this historic House floor before our beautiful American flag and raised our hands in this sacred oath. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help me God. For 230 years, members have taken that sacred oath, which makes us custodians of the Constitution. When our founders declared independence and established a new nation, they crafted a system of government unlike one ever seen before, a republic, starting with the sacred words, "We the people." For centuries, Americans have fought and died to defend democracy for the people. But, very sadly now, our founders' vision of a republic is under threat from actions from the White House. That is why today, as Speaker of the House, I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States. If we do not act now, we would be derelict in our duty. It is tragic that the President's reckless actions make impeachment necessary. He gave us no choice. What we are discussing today is the established fact that the President violated the Constitution. It is a matter of fact that the President is an ongoing threat to our national security and the integrity of our elections, the basis of our democracy. Hundreds of historians, legal scholars, and former prosecutors, regardless of party, have stated that the President committed impeachable offenses. Since today is a national civics lesson, though a sad one, I submit these documents for the record and commend them for students to study.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What we are discussing today is the established fact that the President, again, violated the Constitution. It is a matter of fact that the President is, again, an ongoing threat to our national security. And the testimony of decorated war heroes, distinguished diplomats, and patriotic career public servants, some of the President's own appointees over the past weeks, have told us this. The President used the power of his public office to obtain an improper personal political benefit at the expense of America's national security. When a president weakens a democratic ally that is advancing American security interests by fighting an American adversary, the president weakens America. This abuse of power also jeopardizes the integrity of our elections. All Americans agree that American voters should choose our president, not some foreign government. The founders understood that it is profoundly corrosive for our democracy for a president to invite interference in our elections. As George Washington, our nation's patriot, under whose gaze we stand today, warned, history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of Republican government. George Washington. Sadly, the American people have witnessed further wrongs of the President which necessitate the second article of impeachment, obstruction of Congress. When the President's wrongdoing was revealed, he launched an unprecedented, indiscriminate, and categorical campaign of defiance and obstruction. Never before in the history of our nation have we seen a president declare and act if he is above the law. The president goes even so far as to say and act on this absurdity when he says, Article 2 says I can do whatever I want. No, it doesn't. That recklessness is a profound violation of the Constitution and our republic, which endure because of our system of separation of power, three co-equal branches, each a check and balance on the other, a republic, again, if we can keep it. The founders' great fear of a rogue or corrupt president is the very reason why they enshrined impeachment in the Constitution. As one founder, William Davey of North Carolina, warned, unless the Constitution contained an impeachment provision, a president might spare no efforts or means whatever to get himself reelected. Another founder, George Mason, insisted that the president who procured his appointment in the first instance through improper and corrupt acts might repeat his guilt and return to power. We in Congress, Article 1, the legislative branch, must stand up and make clear to the American people and to all people that this body still stands by the principles enshrined in the Constitution and defended by generations of Americans. Last week, in observance of the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, members traveled to that hallowed ground to express our gratitude to the heroes of freedom who sacrificed everything to secure victory of freedom over tyranny, not just for America, but for the world. The veterans of that battle, who were there in their 90s, told us how after the war was won, the Europeans to whom they liberated would ask, why did you risk us? You don't know us, and give your lives to save us. We're not Americans. And our men would say, we came here to fight for you, not because you are Americans, because we are Americans. As our beloved Chairman Elijah Cummings, an Oversight Committee Chair, our North Star, said when announcing his support for this action, quote, when the history books are written about this tumultuous era, I want them to show that I was among those in the House of Representatives who stood up to lawlessness and tyranny. He also said, almost prophetically, when we are dancing with the angels, the question will be, what did we do to make sure we kept our democracy intact? Elijah, as you know, has since passed on. Now he is dancing with the angels. And I know that he and all of us here are very proud of the moral courage of members who want to honor the vision of our founders for a republic, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform to defend it, and the aspirations of our children to live freely within it. Today, we are here to defend democracy for the people. May God bless America. I yield back the balance of my time.
And right now we are joined by Dr. Charles Selden. He is a political science expert from Nova Southeastern University. And Professor, thank you very much for being here.
Glad to be here.
A historic night. It's been said over and over again. Only the third time in the history of our republic that a president is impeached, as we all know. Richard Nixon resigned before that happened.
Yes.
How do you think this vote, which everybody is expecting to take place possibly in the next hour or so, how do you think it will affect the remaining presidency of Donald Trump?
Well, ultimately, the big impact on this, since there's an assumption that he isn't going to be convicted in the Senate, the big jury that really matters is we the people. Is how we respond to the charges that he's being impeached by, how we respond to the defenses of it, and ultimately whether he gets reelected or not. And impeachment will make that more difficult. It's one thing to run and saying, look at the economy, aren't I a great president? As opposed to, but I really didn't do a quid pro quo.
But this administration does jump from controversy to controversy at lightning speed. It's like keeps everyone's head spinning. So do you think this might be ancient history by the time November rolls around, or is everyone going to be distracted by something else?
There will be other distractions, but I think what it'll be is it'll build on impeachment. Impeachment is not something you can walk away from. In his, when he dies, the first line is going to be, Donald J. Trump, impeached president. This is something that people are going to respond to. This is going to increase attention between the parties. Each side is going to seek to use it for political benefit as we get to the 2020 election. So no, I don't think this is going to die off.
Well, we saw today there were a lot of speeches, and to me what it proved is how divided this country is. You had Democrats saying one thing. They feel that the president deserves to be impeached because of his actions with Ukraine. Mm-hmm. We know the story, that he was looking for political benefit. The Democrats say, the Republicans say, since the beginning, Democrats have wanted to impeach this president. They don't like him. They're just looking for an excuse to do it. They're talking past each other. Is this divide going to stay this way, do you think? In Congress, most definitely. In Congress, this has probably raised tensions that'll take a while to mellow out. Within the country, there are some who will be steadfast the president did no wrong. There are some who are steadfast the president did much wrong and should have been impeached on more grounds. And then there's the rest of us in the middle who are going to look at it and try and figure out what's what. I don't think as a nation we're quite as divided as Congress is. I'm not sure Congress is actually as divided as today's speeches show. What we're seeing here is theater. If they turned off the cameras, if this was happening and nobody was watching but in the House, in the well of the House, this would have been over 4 hours ago.
Well, speaking of that, we're looking at live pictures right now at Battle Creek, Michigan, where the president is going to be holding a rally shortly. So that he will probably be holding a rally at the same time he's being impeached. I mean, is that purposeful? Is that a distraction?
Counter-programming. It's what he does. It'll be a chance for him to, first of all, not have to watch it, a chance for him to attack the process, a chance for his followers to be able to watch him instead of the vote to impeach him. It's a sign, again, of both sides are working very hard to present their position to the American public, because ultimately they know where this is going to matter is in November of 2020.
Okay, and so we're all expecting this vote in the House to go down party lines. What impact do you think that will have on our local representatives? There's been a lot of talk on some Democrats that may be endangering their political futures by casting this vote for impeachment.
There are places where that might happen, but not in South Florida. South Florida is while not completely blue, has sizable, a lot of Democratic voters. For the Democratic congressmen, they probably won't pay a big price for this. The only one I can see who might pay a little, just a very small chance, would be Mario Diaz-Balart when he votes against impeachment, given the fact that his district is turning more blue over time. I doubt, given how popular he is as an individual, it'll make a difference. But in South Florida, no. In Central Florida, there are some congressmen there who might find themselves in trouble for their votes on both sides.
All right, Dr. Charles Zeldin, thank you for joining us on this historic day.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
There are no allegations that the president has committed a crime. We've had almost 3 years of nonstop investigations. We've had the Mueller report, we've had the Schiff investigation, we've had the Nadler investigation, and at no time is there any evidence that indicates that Donald J. Trump violated any criminal statute of the United States. So why are we here? We're here because the majority caucus, the Democratic caucus, has been hijacked by the radical left. They have wanted to reverse the course of the 2016 election ever since Donald J. Trump won that election. So let's look at these two phony articles of impeachment. First of all, abuse of power. The phone call in question had the president say, "Our country has been through a lot. I want you to do us a favor. Not me a favor, us a favor." And there he was referring to our country, the United States of America, not a personal political gain. He was not afraid to let this transcript go public, and he released the transcript almost immediately after the call. Now, the second article, impeachment, obstruction of Congress, it basically says that unless the president gives us everything we want and when we want it, then he's committed an impeachable offense. That's a bunch of bunk. The president has certain individual and privileges by virtue of his office. Whenever there's been a dispute between the executive and legislative branches heretofore, they've gone to court. And the Supreme Court a couple weeks ago said they would take jurisdiction over deciding whether the president had to comply with one subpoena relating to his tax returns. Now here, the Democrats have been bent to impeach the President of the United States before the court decides this.
This is not a hypothetical. President Trump violated the law and solicited foreign interference in our election. At the same time, objective experts have overwhelming evidence that Russia interfered in the 2016 election and is actively engaged in undermining the 2020 elections. Our vote today and the Senate's actions on impeachment have very real long-term consequences for American democracy. Where do we go from here if the Senate does not remove him? The president has a pattern of escalating behavior. The day before the special counsel testified to Congress that the Russian government interfered in our election in sweeping and systemic fashion, President Trump made this call. 2 days before that, the president says that Article 2 of the Constitution says that he can do whatever he wants. As Washington warned in his farewell address, foreign interference tampers with domestic factions and misleads public opinion. We must honor the nation that our founders envisioned and impeach this president for violating the law and betraying the American people. I yield back.